And today we talk about emotional healing. It's a deep dive session, so I'm really looking forward to get your questions to make sure that we go all the way. We and can maybe talk about the entire topic of emotional healing, why it is controversial, because in the past, saying that chronic fatigue syndrome or ME or any of these labels had anything to do with emotional healing was very, very controversial. I received quite a lot of backlash, angry emails, because does it mean that if it's emotional, that it is just inside of your head, right? Is it imaginary when it's emotional? And the answer is no, because in a lot of brain scans, scientists have shown that emotional stress can make the limbic brain switch on symptoms to protect you. And these things that they can show you, they are very real. So they can show you that by focusing on an emotion, something will happen with your immune system. And suddenly we're talking about all these autoimmune diseases. People think that there is something wrong with their immune system, that they have to suppress the immune system or boost the immune system. We can see that there are changes in the muscles. This is how TMS, the mind body syndrome, originally started. So, very exciting topic. And Steve Ozanich, the author of The Great Pain Deception, it's a book that I would recommend you to read, says that the pain from a mind body symptom is probably the most, how do I call this? Um, the most difficult symptom that a human being can experience. So suddenly it's not anymore imaginary and unreal, but extreme. And that's exactly what is going on. So, by making our clients focus on an emotion, we can switch on the symptoms. In fact, I can make almost everyone experience symptoms. It doesn't I don't really know what symptoms will develop, but by asking them questions such as why, people talk a lot, and by asking them, why is that important for you? Like for example, recently I said to someone, I can make everyone cry within 2 minutes, and so I asked her, what is important for you? I want to make an impact, was her answer. And okay, why that? And then a few more questions, and it turned out that she felt really, really worthless. So that's an emotion, that's shame. And then she started getting symptoms. I don't really know what symptoms will develop. Maybe a migraine, maybe fatigue. And then by allowing her to process that, she became symptom free again. So there's nothing terribly wrong with you, and that's maybe very good news. Um, I'm live. My internet connection isn't great, so there is a minute delay, but I'm already seeing that there are some questions that I would love to answer, but I hope I can get there. Hello from Oregon. Hello, Oregon. Hi, Christina. Hello from France. Oh, wow. Oh, this is where everybody's coming from. And from Florida. Well, I'm glad that you're all here. I hope the live stream is going well. And I hope the internet, I hope I'm actually in good quality. So there is a delay. And if you have a question, then please share it on the screen. And otherwise, I'll just continue talking. So I already received a few questions, and someone was asking whether a psychoanalysis and making yourself emotional was necessary. A psychoanalysis is something that I don't really recommend because it's a mind driven technique to find out everything that could be wrong emotionally with you. That's not really how emotions in the body work. That can make things very negative. So instead, it's much better to let the body speak, to let the body come up with the emotions. The body has its own rhythm, and the body wants to let go from emotions like onions, like an onion, many layers. What are the layers that you are ready to release? And what are the layers that are causing the symptom? That's much more important than going chronologically inside of your childhood and finding out how miserable your life is or was, because that's basically becoming very, very negative. So, yeah, negative emotions, when you focus yourself a lot on negative emotions, I mean, negative, are they really negative? They are emotions, they are boundaries. When I punch you, you're supposed to become angry to protect yourself. With that anger, you can either punch me back or walk away. So that's a good thing, right? Fear is to make sure that you don't involve yourself in a dangerous situation. Shame is, I think, the consequence of not allowing yourself to be who you really are. Loneliness is not seeing yourself. Grief is processing the things that leave your life. Sadness is also very important to feel that through. So, all these things are languages from the soul, um, and we should acknowledge that. But if you focus only on negativity, then life becomes very hard. And a lot of people are focusing overly on positivity, which is also the same thing. Why would I focus on positivity? Because I'm in a place of negativity. And positive thinking can be equally toxic as negative thinking. Instead, I think that thinking is overrated, but that sounds like a contradiction. Usually, what we see is that thoughts are a consequence of staying in a state of resistance towards our emotions. So, thoughts become a distraction towards not feeling emotions. Going in your body and feeling the trauma, because that's basically what a suppressed emotion is, uh, can cause you to experience a setback because the brain can perceive that as an extreme danger when you haven't done any preparation work. Therefore, it's very important to know what you're doing and to go very slowly and to prepare yourself into feeling an emotion. Let's say anger. Anger is pretty overwhelming. And when it comes to anger, um, it helps to make sure you've got positive experiences with that. If you have like a 1 month of a few minutes a day with some positive experiences, it becomes easier to feel and to process anger. If you don't do it, then you can't really feel it. So then you'll need more symptoms. And then I can point you towards your anger. And then you get extreme symptoms. So that can cause to huge setbacks or relapses. And I also think that every day, like every time you have a symptom or when you feel stressed or when you're overthinking, there is an emotion inside of your body, usually just one. And you can focus on that emotion maybe for half an hour and try to see if you can release it, if you can cry. If not, tomorrow is another day. So I always recommend to go in slowly and to not exaggerate things. Okay. And a question from Eladu. I have a hard time with shifting symptoms because I get scared that it is a real bad thing. How to cope with that? Well, um, you're experiencing an emotion. Scared is fear. So fear is usually in the lungs. So before you can go forward, you need to deal with that fear. You need to sit with it. Sometimes that is also a very old fear that you projected on this current situation. So you need to feel the fear. It's inside of your body, it's inside of your lungs usually. You need to breathe through it. Maybe it's feeling it through is all you need, but maybe you really need to do, for example, an EMDR session where you complete the stress response related to fear, which is then flight, running, and then moving the eyes back and forward before you can continue. a lot of fear for your body, for the symptoms. I think part of the reason is as well a very toxic online community with Facebook groups to make people afraid. And even though a lot of people share mind body stories, it's still like the purpose of a mind body symptom is to make you to obsess you about it. Um, so it does whatever it can that you doubt the mind body explanation. And fear is a great way to obsess about it. But unfortunately, fear is another emotion. And when you also perceive fear as a danger, then you get more symptoms. So that's a negative spiral. Hello, Joy Udall from Alabama. Wow, we're very international. Nikki from British Columbia, Canada. I've been there. I've been there actually when I had chronic fatigue syndrome. My uncle lives there, and it was actually when I was there, I had a crash, and because I was so nervous of meeting him, I wanted to become like to show myself as a good guy, which is also an emotional coping mechanism to be responsible and likable and etc. So I spent most of my time there in his bed, not his bed, but another in spare bedroom. But I really like the birds there. These what are these the names called of those tiny birds? Anyway, I really enjoyed it there. Miriam, do you mean really to get symptom free forever or just temporary? Well, it's temporary. It's you how do I say this? You have multiple layers of emotions, and therefore you can become symptom free today or tomorrow, maybe for the same layer that you're ready to release. But the next day, something else might pop up. I do hope that my internet connection is very good, by the way. Can you give me some feedback because I'm trying to see how it looks, and I look in very low quality, but I hope that doesn't really bother you. Okay, Miriam again. Is the release program based on a certain philosophy or psychological theory? Well, not really, but it's based on the science related to mind body symptoms. And to combine that with schema therapy, with trauma work, I'm a trauma therapist. But along the way, we had to ditch a lot of knowledge and a lot of old beliefs and things. And right now, when we have sometimes a psychologist who also has chronic fatigue syndrome, I coached one like a few months ago, and she told me that she learned in 3 months more than in an entire study, a 6 year study, because we make it very, very practical. And we basically developed it along the way. So we had a lot of ups and downs. We learned a lot, spoke to so many people. And yeah, that's how we developed it. Then Brelo. Do you know the work of Nicole Sachs, especially her new book, Mind Your Body? Is it similar to your approach to curing chronic fatigue syndrome? Um, I looked into Nicole Sachs, I think 7 years ago, and it was a journaling method. The journaling method to write about anger. That was what it was back then. And I did something similar myself, but I noticed that it wasn't enough. So I bought this book from Dr. Schubiner, I think back in 2019 or something. And I did notice that by focusing on my anger, I got some more energy. But we also have like journaling questions, but they're more to the point, and we don't really the goal that we have with journaling is to prepare yourself. So it might feel like it leads to nowhere, but over the course of a few months, you normalize the experience of, for example, anger or shame. But it's just a part of what we're doing. because then we need to connect to the body, and then by you can feel it somatically, and we do practices to do that. So you can actually feel the emotion. It's on an organ. Sometimes it's on the heart, and then you experience a symptom like POTS, or shortness of breath, or um, a bad digestion, for example. And then we have a lot of ways to make you release that once you can feel it. So it's much more than that. Plus, we have also other preparation tools, for example, embodied movement, and we probably add a few more one to it, like making arts, for example, expressing something, an emotion, or the idea of having an emotion. Like the we have to change the belief, the unconscious belief that certain emotions are dangerous, and we can only do that by making sure that you experience good moments with an emotion. For example, you journal about fear. Let's say not even your fear, but the fear of someone completely different. Just for a few minutes, you imagine the character to have some fear, to then um, tell the like, and to then stop and maybe eat a chocolate bar, to do something very soothing, so that you associate fear with something okay. It's never going to be amazing. You never. It's not like fear. Yes, the most amazing thing, and you'll never have symptoms, but it becomes easier. And when we connect you with your fear, you get a softer landing. So you that means that the brain won't freak out completely. Then next question from Nikki. When I drive in the car, I am in shock. My eyes and brain start squeezing. I dislike leaving my house to go to errands. How would I address that? Well, I think that it's outside of your comfort zone. Therefore, there is an emotion involved, maybe fear. So, extreme exposure to doing groceries and errands is probably not helpful, but small exposure and preparation work, what I just mentioned before, could help you go inside of your body and to really find what is going on. Like, is there an emotion here? And can you release it? Okay. Then the next question. Am I allowed to work with a naturopath next to the program, or do I completely have to avoid any physical treatment and supplementation? No, you're completely allowed to work with a naturopath. Yeah, why not? I mean, everyone who is completely stressed for a longer period of time has deficiencies and other issues maybe that related to the gut, to digestion, and doing that could help you, but I don't think it's completely necessary. It's more important to really deal with the root cause, but no one is going to tell you that you need to do only this. We're not Nazis or something like that. Okay, next question is from Joy Udall. I can do the releases myself, but struggle having the discipline to make myself release because it hurts. Okay, that's contradiction. It's just a matter of discipline, or is there another way to make yourself do the releases? Well, eventually these releases will happen all by itself because the body is ready to let go and the brain is in resistance and creates some symptoms. But if you remove the resistance and if you work with the body, if you move on the body and if you don't distract yourself, plus if you have some experience, the body could do it all by itself. And yes, so yeah, and some structure into getting there, I think, could be very helpful. Discipline is a very difficult word as well, because discipline usually comes from a coping mechanism to push yourself to do certain things from survival mode. So discipline is not the right word here. I like self love more. because that's more efficient, like kindness to yourself, love to yourself. And this could be anything, like not distracting with a mobile phone, breathing through your body when you're on the toilet, giving yourself something nice to drink, putting a warm blanket around you, sit in the sun, focus on your breath, very simple things. You're welcome, Eladu and Miriam. Can we book as many sessions as we want during the program? I know they're paid extra, or should we limit ourselves? I'm just worried I can't make myself release. So that's a fear, first of all. So you are afraid that you can't do it. Maybe that's shame, like you feel worthless, incapable of doing that. Um, so then what you're doing is that by making sure that you pay for sessions, you use the sessions as a coping mechanism to avoid feeling the shame or fear that you have inside of yourself. And the therapist or our coaches are very good at spotting that. So they can help you with that and they can help you get in contact with it. They also give you some, like a custom made plan for you to follow. And if you follow that, then you need at least a few weeks to see to do it. You can't immediately book a next session and then they like it was yesterday and they say, did you do any of the things that I wrote? No, no, because it was only yesterday. So that doesn't work. But once a week, or is it, well, once a week is a bit much. Maybe once every 2, 3, preferably once every month. It's I think the best approach. Okay. Yep. I still hope you guys can see me in good quality because I'm basically I moved to a new place here in the on the Azores and I had to install Starlink and it's not really that fast here to be honest. So yep. Oh, sorry, I show it again. Can working towards releases cause mental problems such as psychosis or something similar? Not if you go in the proper speed, but if you rush, then oh, internet is okay. Thanks. But if you rush, then well, I've never heard someone had a psychosis, but extreme symptoms. Like for example, I said that yesterday in the video. If you would do, but that's the same thing. Like for example, when I went for the first time to a therapist and we did EMDR. So EMDR is the completion of the stress response. So the fight response for me, it was a moment where I was 2 years old. I had to relive that something that wasn't free, something that I didn't remember. And I was so angry. And the therapist made me destroy the windows and put the house on fire with my anger. Then, we had to move the eyes back and forth, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right to process. And then I drove home and then I had a migraine attack. So that was a mind body symptom. Then all of a sudden my shoulder was hurting. And then all of a sudden I couldn't breathe properly. And that was the Friday before Christmas, and then it was holiday, so I had to wait 2 weeks with those severe symptoms, and that was basically because there was no preparation, nothing. The therapist just put in some work, like some good luck, let's see what we can do, and that's not helpful. So I think if you go to a therapist, then the program could really be beneficial to make sure you get the most out of it. And mental problems are usually I mean, in my opinion, they're usually caused by an emotional issue. If you've done the preparation work, then you can go through. And there is a guy in the program who has psychosis, and but he did not have any psychosis experience in the year that he was with us. Okay, Daria, why Dr. Sarno advised the patients to go to the psychotherapist to recover from TMS and focus on repressed emotions. I mean, did he? I think he was more about educating people about the mind body response. I don't know if he did this, but we do that more or less. But we don't, I mean, we don't, like, again, we don't do this mentally. We do this physically. We look at what is here right now in the body, what's ready to release. If if today something comes up, for example, an emotion that you are like, for example, in my past, I had an emotion that I was not willing to wear a raincoat. Well, that came up. I was angry because I didn't want to wear a raincoat. So that was a trauma. And well, that was a very light one. But other times, something much heavier came up. But the process stayed the same. Okay. Oh, I'm so happy. Thanks that the video is good. Then subsea, I always feel a very strong pressure in my chest. The emotions often feel very overwhelming there. I often feel into it and then relax. Is that okay to start with? That's amazing. I always have this sentence in my mind: breathe through it. Put your hand on it, breathe through it, and everything is going to be all right. If you can already feel it, then you're more than halfway there. The audio is great. Thanks. I have regular ketamine therapy treatments to help with anxiety and depression. Do you think it can be helpful for mind body issues as well? Um, well, depression is a mind body symptom. Like, we can switch depression on and off by dealing with the emotions. And ketamine, like, isn't that the drug, or is there something else? Because I'm not really about a fan of taking drugs, like this extreme addictive drug. Is that right? Or maybe I'm wrong here. And anxiety is the extreme resistance towards an emotion that is about to come up. Fear maybe against anger, or anger against fear. So it's usually a mixture. Then the next question: after a crash 8 months ago, my symptoms concentrated into shortness of breath. So that's the lungs, with an emotion on the lungs, usually fear, with any activity, movement alongside fear, and so on. My classic CFS symptoms went away. What could be happening? I think what's happening is that you're ready to feel the fear and to feel it through. It's already there. What is fear? What does it need? How old were you when you first felt this sensation? Um, can you imagine your inner child? What position is he or she? How does he feel? How does it feel to be stuck inside of your body for a very long time? Can you touch your inner child? Can you sit next to it? Can you comfort it? Can you acknowledge that this part of you is afraid? Can you breathe through it? So that's inner child work. How to approach sensitization and conditioning response with your method. I'm not sure, actually. I understand. Like, lately, a lot of new terms are coming online. I don't really know anymore what's going on. To be sensitive for emotions, you mean? Well, that's the preparation work that we do. And the conditioning response, I don't really understand what that means. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Maybe it could be my English. I started switching to English when I was having chronic fatigue syndrome, and I was in bed every day. I was reading research, and I never saw someone from the Netherlands because my friends, they didn't come anymore. So then I started speaking English, but I had to learn myself to speak English. So I was speaking. I'm not really speaking any language properly right now. I'm new to your channel. Is a release going into the feeling and allowing it and accepting it? Yeah, more or less. Yeah, and yeah, feeling it through. That's it. Then the body removes the resistance. You start shaking, shivering, crying, sweating, vomiting. And then after that, you feel so much better. J rolls. I am so emotionally numb that it's difficult to access the feelings I want to release. I have been meditating and trying to be present with myself, but I don't feel anything. I am completely bedridden. Yeah, so that's the pit, the darkness. Um, I'm sorry that you're there. Emotionally numbness is, of course, the reason behind the issue. And so we have like a few steps that we do, like we calm you down via habits, not via thinking or imagination. Um, then to prepare you, feeling the emotions. Sorry, now I already forgot about my steps. And eventually you can feel it. Oh, you connect with the body. That's an important step because if you can't connect with the body, then you stay in overthinking mode. But I don't feel anything, and I'm completely bedridden. So that's always together, more or less, because the more you feel your emotions, the less you're going to be bedridden, and the less symptoms you'll have. Because the whole problem is that you have the symptoms because you're not ready to feel the emotion. Christina, I love your answer. Oh, yeah, thank you. And another question from Joy, just to clarify. I meant the convulsions and shaking that my body does during the releases hurts. The feeling of the emotional energy flowing through is intense. I do feel much better after though. Yeah. I must say, I have to admit, convulsions. I don't know, what does that mean exactly? But shaking, shivering, these things happen, and it's sometimes uh, pretty heavy, and it shouldn't hurt. But I can imagine that when you're doing this all on your own, that it hurts. And after that intense experience, you should feel better. And if not, if you don't feel better, then you're not ready. That doesn't mean that you need to go in again, but you can go tomorrow. Because I always would say always limit, the because it can get very negative. So I would always limit your experience with this, and then after that, because we create a hole in your body by feeding it through, and this hole you don't want to fill this hole up with negativity and desperation and despair. So you would want to do something very nice, maybe I mean, we've got a lot of integration sessions in the program where you do a guided session to fill yourself up with the truth. For example, worthiness or abundance or trust in the body and those kind of things. So that's a really important. I mean, I don't think it's necessary because emptiness is also very beautiful, but that's not where most people are. Thanks, Donnie. Are the visualizations part of your recovery program? Yeah, we have a few guided sessions with some visualizations in it. I think right now we have over 60 guided sessions for every emotion almost and situation. We have a session that you can turn on and hopefully release. Blessings to you, Thomas. Thanks for answering my previous question. You mentioned fear is often in the lungs. Could you list other types of emotions and the associated organs, please? Well, this is sort of like my experience. If you would read Chinese medicine, then they have a completely different thing. But I just noticed after doing so many coaching sessions that it was always the same thing, the same emotions: anger in the gut, shame in the heart, fear in the lungs, and the other emotions are sort of all over the place. That's my experience, and I think we're spot on with that because sometimes when a client is mentioning fear, but also the gut, then it turned out to be anger after all. Oh, suddenly everything changed. Thomas, There's a lot of noise outside. Mine is triggered by fearing that I can't sustain myself and work. Yeah, so that's a worst case scenario. And if you feel that through without resistance, I mean, that's difficult and you should prepare yourself for that. You are going to be you're going to have a release and you feel so much better after that. Yes. And everyone is sort of ending up exactly where they fear to go. And then when you are there, for example, when I couldn't open my eyes anymore, always in bed, living in my parents' or step parents' house, I realized that I was exactly in the spot that I always feared, and it wasn't that bad. And then the fear dissolves until I projected my fear on another situation. So eventually, you need to feel the fear through. Ah, okay. Yeah. He did his patients with severe symptoms. Yeah. And I think that most people with chronic fatigue syndrome do have severe symptoms. And this is about the recommendation from Dr. John Sarno. Well, Donnie, what about QHHT session? I don't know. I don't know. What does that mean? Quality, high pressure, for something like that. Mia must mustos. I'm bedridden as well and so weak. I'm worried if I could even follow a program or a group meeting online. May I ask if there are other bedridden folks in class also have light sound sensitivity? Yeah, many, many. And this is actually the a phase that you can easily improve from by like the first four modules of the program are there only for to improve this situation. So the videos are very short and everyone can improve just by switching off the secondary stress response. So we're not even dealing with the root cause here in the first part of the program, but by switching off the secondary stress response, people can recover up to 70%. And this is what everyone calls, the infamous 70% recoveries that people get from brain retraining, for example. It's that they remove the secondary stress, so the stress related to their condition, related to dealing with the symptoms, resisting the symptoms, overthinking, and by dealing with that, you immediately improve, and then your body is it becomes easier for the body. It's not going to be stable, but it becomes easier to stay in the rest and digest mode, and as a consequence, you're going to be able to deal much better with light and sound. But for me, it took several years in my journey to be really able to deal with sound because I was very sound sensitive. Even my ears, they were so extremely reacting to sounds. But that was also because I didn't know what I was doing. And I hope that we can make things a lot easier for you. Thank you. Thank you, Joy. Daria, can having the overwhelming emotions cause up regulated nervous system? Mm, sorry. Can having the overwhelming emotions cause up regulated nervous system? I don't really know what you're meaning. um, so having overwhelming emotions can cause stress because the whole regulated this regulated nervous system story is a story about stress. Stress is resisting what? Overwhelming emotions. So coming in contact with overwhelming emotions will at first make you feel stressed, especially if you haven't prepared yourself and if you go too fast. I hope that's the answer. And then Nikki, in your journey, do you explore the influence of bleed throughs from other timelines affecting the present moment since we are multidimensional beings? No. No, we don't make things complicated. Um, because things are always simple in the present moment, here, now. Even if you talk about generational trauma, for example, feeling the pain of your grandparents, or even if you believe in previous lives, which I do, and know that you already dealt with the situation in your previous life, the emotional wound comes back in this life. And so you don't need to leave this realm. You don't need to leave this life. I don't think it's. I think it could be a huge distraction to be in your mind, thinking, which is opposite of feeling. To think about everything, to make things complicated. Yeah, so it's not necessary. You're welcome, Miriam. And then D, I went from bedridden to somewhat functional. It took me 5 years to get here. Don't lose hope, people. 5 years is a very long time. And it took me as well 5 years, more or less. But I sort of like went through every phase multiple times. And over the course of many years, especially now dealing with this work, we can actually decrease that amount of time into a few days. And I know that sounds crazy, but it is possible because we have to deal with a secondary stress response first. And then it's not going to be stable. Yeah, but it can go much, much faster. But I'm glad that you recovered all the way to that point. Then another question from Daria: are people with Hashimoto can recover? Yeah, actually, Valentina she's my partner, and we do the program together. She had Hashimoto's, and at one point, she just threw away her medication uh, in the ocean with all the plastic. And if you swim somewhere, in no, 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 I think she just threw it in the bin. But she doesn't have it anymore, and another friend of mine used to have Hashimoto's, and we think that Hashimoto's is as well sort of an organ here, and we think that it has to do with speaking your truth. And sometimes that can be, I'm in pain. That comes out. That sometimes that's like a clear boundary, like no, maybe a boundary that you needed to say when you were a very young child. But that's usually something that happens gradually. So we're not really focusing on that. Okay, a few more questions because it's already 40 minutes now. I'm currently in a bit of a funk and have been lying in bed for a week. I had to take care of 3 kids on my own while my husband was in the hospital. Do you have any tips? Thank you so much. Yeah, it's hard to skip phases because of a desired outcome. But sometimes I really trust life. Like if life throws something at me, it better be good for a good reason. And if we remove the resistance towards life and the situation and the emotions, then things can become easier. So do everything that you're doing in a slower speed. Notice that there is an emotion because your husband is in the hospital. Notice that it is overwhelming. Talk with your children about your emotions. Don't pretend to be someone who has it all, who knows it all, who's perfectly reliable. Children will know anyway that you're not the person that you're showing yourself to be. So it's about realness, taking things slower, accepting, breathing through. But it's hard in the beginning, I think. You're welcome, Mia. Oh, it's Diane Cannon's work, quantum healing hypnosis technique. I still don't really know what it is, but I do hypnosis. I mean, hypnosis is we are always under a form of hypnosis, and changing the underlying beliefs will always create a quantum shift. So yeah, that's I'll leave it to that. I'm currently in a small crash and have been lying in bed for a week. I had to take care of three kids on my own while my husband was in the hospital. Do you have any tips? Oh, sorry. Like, I'm getting a little bit tired from the questions. Okay. Then I'll just do the for don't send me more questions, okay? Victor, lately I have been feeling more in my body during the sessions from the program. I have also noticed that my tiredness during the days have increased. What can this mean? Should I rest if tired? And I think you're noticing it's something that I call no man's land. So it's a phase that the body can actually be tired instead of stressed or fatigued, which is a mind body symptom. And in those cases, rest is very good, very effective. A nap, and it's a different type of tiredness, unless you're in resistance towards this new phase. So I think you're in the program, and for everyone else, it's free on the website. I talk about the several phases of symptoms, having symptoms and having no man's land. Um, have no man's land is sort of like a healing phase, and it's called Phases. I think Phases of MECFS. It's a blog on the website. Oh, I've already had that one. Agreed that this fear that causes my shortness of breath is within the inner child. My memories of fear are strong. So maybe this symptom is the scariest, resistant, because it's the most honest. Well, I wouldn't make it epic, you know. Fear is fear. Feeling it through will help you. Maybe there are going, like, it sounds pretty epic, but maybe there are going to be 10 or 20 other layers of fear. And in the end, it's just fear, just an emotion. Do you have any correlation net how long one is ill and how long it takes to recover? I've had CFS for 44 years. Wow, that's a very long time, D. Every day you can become symptom free. And I know that's impossible almost to hear, to accept. Every symptom can be switched off. Every state of stress can be turned off by allowing what you're resisting. 44 years basically means it's a very long time to stay stuck. Maybe you're still waiting for the same layer of the onion to release that you were, well, let's say 10 years ago. Release it, and the symptoms will diminish, and the stress will lower, the thoughts will disappear. And then it's not anymore about recovery, it's about peeling yourself like a layer. You wake up, you have symptoms, you release, you feel better, you go on with your day, you go to your job. Maybe you have to pace yourself a little bit, maybe work half days. In the breaks, you notice that the stress is ramping up. You go somewhere where you're quiet and alone. You do a release from the program, maybe you cry a little bit, and the rest of your day you're good, and that's how you can actually live. I think that's very important to say. So thank you for this question. Thank you as well, Donnie. Thank you, Nikki, and Dasha and Philip from Belarus. That's an interesting country. We're seriously ill, chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. We know English poorly, averagely. Will we be able to participate in the program? If you understand my English, then you will. If not, then you won't. Um, yeah, I don't know even what language you guys are speaking. Is it Russian, right? I think there are very good Russian practitioners. There are very wise people in Russia, very spiritual people as well, who can help you go through multiple layers of emotions. But you have to know what you're doing, and you have to understand the mind body concepts. And you can look into Dr. John Sarno, the mind body, what is it called, the mind body prescription, other books from Steve Ozanich, and maybe translate them in your language or find a translated version and go through doing trauma therapy in Belarus. You can do it everywhere. What we're doing is basically a mixture of trauma release, um, habits to reduce the stress, schema therapy, um, and we know lots of ways to trigger people into feeling their emotions. So that's, I mean, it's because we come from a time where this was so weird, like nobody would talk about this, but it's actually, I mean, it's not rocket science. And it, when I think about it right now, it's like so obvious and clear. But saying this stuff 6, 7 years ago, everyone would become very angry. So no one did. There's a light in my, oh my God, that's a, did you guys see that? When we touch sports with pain, the symptoms go away. We don't know how this, to do this in a permanent basis. Well, sports. If that's your issue right now, then take a step back and and just first go on walks, go for walks, get a dog. Yeah, when we come into contact with the internal pain, the symptoms go away, but we don't know how to do it on a permanent basis. I can totally understand you. So yeah, you can join the program or find maybe a trauma therapist who is like it should always be a trauma therapist who works with the body, not with the mind. Like forget about psychoanalysis. That kind of stuff is too mind driven. And once you had a few of those releases, you get the hang of it. You become okay with it, and maybe you will manage to become symptom free, but maybe you won't. And that's also not a very bad thing because the resistance towards the situation makes everything much worse. If we really resolve the secondary stress that is caused by resisting your circumstances, people almost instantly manage to get to the 70% recovery zone. And from there on, it's much easier to deal with your primary stress. But it's not going to be stable. And when something very overwhelming will come up, you will maybe get extreme symptoms. Um, but a symptom is just a symptom. Whether it's a small symptom or an extreme symptom, it just has one emotion behind it. Maybe you need to cry a minute. Maybe you need to cry 2 minutes. Maybe you need to cry 4 minutes. Yeah, I had in the past, I had Valentina, and I had to deal with a lot of shame on my heart. So I had a lot of pots. And I basically made her trigger me, telling me what kind of a worthless guy I was, how pathetic I am. And that helped. Okay, well, it's been almost an hour. Thank you so much for being here with the live session, and I hope I've answered all the questions. Thanks for the questions, and yeah, see you in the next video. Have a beautiful Sunday, beautiful week, beautiful healing journey. Bye.